Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I am Cedric Rimaud, the fund manager of First Degree Global Asset Management and of the fund Earthquake Green Impact Fund. And it is my pleasure to invite you today to this discussion. We want to present you the people behind Lionheart Farms Philippines. Some of the people you will be hearing today are actually currently in Palawan, in the Philippines. And we will be hearing from them how great a business they are conducting right now in the coconut farming. And we will start this presentation with a short video, which I'm going to share with you now of presentation of the company itself.
Mabuhay! Welcome to Lionheart Farms. This video tour will give you an intimate, behind-the-scenes look into what we do and who we are. Facing the West Philippine Sea and located at the foot of Palawan's highest mountain, Mount Matalingan, the municipality of Jose P. Rizal is our home. We will start by introducing our president, Christian I. Demoller. Diversity in nature and people gives us adaptability, resilience, and room for evolution. Our teams constantly evolve to meet the challenges of our commitment to be at the forefront of sustainable agriculture and always work to the highest international standards with respect for community, culture, and environment as we embrace the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Lionheart Farms is home to more than 1,000 people. We currently have 890 employed. Mastering a wide span of skills and competencies, we employ professionals from different industries such as agriculture, chemistry, forestry, communications, accounting, education, information technology, and many others. Led by 100 supervisors, 25 managers, and 5 directors, we operate 3 major business units: the farm, the factory, and the shared support departments. We have 300 partner farmers and 200 suppliers, of which more than 90% are from the local community. Lionheart Farms has 3 different factories: a food processing factory for our coconut flour syrup, coconut sugar, and coconut aminos; the organic fertilizer factory, which produces more than 600 tons of granular bioorganic fertilizer on a monthly basis; the charcoal briquette factory for sustainably producing common-use charcoal from local bio-waste, like rice hull or coconut husk, shell, and leaves. We have 125 standard operating procedures, which are integrated in management systems and process flows, while being fully supported by cloud-based technology for ease of access. We're proud to have 15 internal and external platforms which we use as communication channels for our advocacies. We promote transparency and traceability of our products. With 8 international certifications and acknowledged assessments, we believe we're off to a good start. For our commitment to compliance, Lionheart Farms currently has around 100 permits mandated by the laws and regulations of the Philippines. The farming operations are divided into our 7 farms and 10 clusters of partner farms. Spread across the municipalities of Rizal, Batarasa, and Quezon, we're present in most of southern Palawan. Our offices are located in BGC Metro Manila, Puerto Princesa City, Ransang Rizal, Colacion Rizal, and the main office in Punta Baja Rizal. For the benefit of customers, consumers, and other stakeholders, we ensure the highest standards of compliance are met from soil to shelf. This covers all aspects of the business model. We are committed to organic agricultural practices, food safety, biodiversity, and a significant contribution to carbon capture and storage, as well as working in partnership with our host community, the indigenous people of Palawan. We realize the ambition of this project and understand our vision for the future won't be easy to fulfill. That's why we stake our reputation on these core values: customer service, empathy, adaptability, leadership, integrity, teamwork, innovation, and results-driven. And this is how we will complete our mission. Our actions must embody these words. And to ensure this, we have adopted a policy of self-declaration. to always face the reality of our commitment. We love welcoming everyone. This is Lionheart Farms.
So this was a video to introduce Lionheart Farms Philippines. So I would like now to turn the microphone to Anders Hagen, chairman and co-founder of Lionheart. Anders, hello, good afternoon. Could you please tell us a little bit more about the genesis of this project and the history of Lionheart?
Of course. Thank you, Cedric. I started in banking, so I was a banker before I became a farmer, but it just gives a more of a, I suppose, financial discipline angle to study agriculture. But I've been fascinated with agriculture for as long as I can remember. And about 10 or 12 years ago, I came across this little thing, not the sculpture, but the coconut tree. So we're all familiar with what they look like. But the traditional farmers are considered poor. So why did we think it was a good idea to start Lionheart? What was the magic sauce that we believed in and that allowed us to raise money and get started? It's a number of small improvements, but in the overall picture, it becomes quite significant. The harvest of coconuts from the tree really only gives you about 12% of the photosynthesis production that you can sell into the global food and beverage markets. Okay, 12 to 13%, that sort of number. But we looked at an old traditional method of harvesting coconut trees which bypasses the coconuts. So you essentially slice this off and you harvest the sugar juice that comes straight from photosynthesis. Okay, that's our magic sauce. What is the effect of doing that? Well, of every unit of CO2 that we harvest from the air as one of our raw materials, 46% comes out here as a marketable product. There is no crop anywhere near this productivity. Think about anything else you can think of, corn, grains, seeds, everything. You're down into single digits. So we are harvesting 46% of the photosynthetic production. How do we translate that into a business? I've got one slide that I do like to show. And that's really how do we go from that observation to, let me see, I need to share screen. There we go. So that is a 4-time improvement in yield of calories, if you will, from the crop. But if you start all the way back from the bottom, I said it's not a very attractive job to be a coconut farmer because a traditional farmer has 100 trees on his 1 hectare land. They were probably planted by his grandfather. He earns about $500 a year, which clearly cannot sustain a family. So that's the base level. That's where we started analyzing this. I'm measuring this in calories because it makes it easy to compare across different crops. So a traditional farmer harvests about enough calories to feed 8 to 10 people. So what Lionheart says is, okay, if we put a more productive tree in the ground, that is a hybrid coconut tree that triples the yield per tree, that's already a good improvement, but it requires patience and capital. So that's number one. The next is if you can put more trees per hectare, clearly you get more harvest per hectare. And in our model, we put almost 400 trees in certain areas. Again, that gives you 4 times higher productivity per hectare. And then, like I said, the little piece of magic of harvesting the sugar juice before it turns into a not sellable coconut gives you this massive leap in productivity per hectare. This is why we're here. It was this insight that effectively Christian and I and Henrik decided this is too good to not build a business out of this. So this is the theory of Lionheart. So Christian is the practice of Lionheart, and we owe him all a huge amount of respect for the work he's doing in the farm.
And you started how many years ago, Anders?
Well, I had my palm epiphany in 2009, but we started Lionheart in 2014, end of 14, beginning of 15.
And now you are at a stage where the trees are coming to maturity and it's now time to go into serious business, isn't it?
So we have invested a lot of shareholders' funds so far. We have a bit of bank financing, but not as much as you would expect in a big balance sheet like ours. We have an order book for the next 18 months. We need some more equipment to process some of the raw materials, but we are basically now harvesting our own trees.
Very good. So now I will turn to Christian, the other person behind this project, president and co-founder of Lionheart Farms Philippines. So Christian, you are based in Palawan. Can you please tell us a little bit about the current state of the business?
Yeah, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So I'm right now actually in our factory, which is in the southern part of Palawan, and it's located inside our farm. So this is where I live, and this is where we've been building the business since we started operating on the ground in 2016, having secured all the required compliances and agreements to establish the business. And I think perhaps to supplement to what Anders said, if you can should say appreciate the dynamics of how we create value in terms of the efficiency of the coconut palm. I think the other very important aspect to this is, of course, simply just putting the business together. And in the video that you saw, you can see that in this last 5 years, we have been able to put in place an organization that essentially meets the highest international standard. I think that this is best perhaps exemplified by the fact that we started operating in an area that was hard to access. We did not have the most fundamental infrastructure of cemented roads, power infrastructure. And today we have a fully functioning business, digitalized from one end to the other, highly focused on planning, standard operating procedures and process. And this is quite critical because essentially where we are today, with a scale of more than 500,000 palms planted, we're able to say that when we will harvest at scale, we will have a cost of full cost, all included, to harvest the most basic nuts at 15% of the historic average sales price of the bare coconuts. So that would be a business where you would simply let the nuts fall to the ground and not do any further value adding. So I think it's very important for us because we set out to be a profitable farmer, and we set out to not only show to ourselves, but also show to the industry that we could show the way for the future for coconut farming, and that is through scale. And scale is important to be able to comply with all these increasing requirements that are coming from the customer side. The most basic of which is things like organic certification. So even if you want to just supply nuts to the traditional processing industry, it's an absolute requirement that those nuts have to be organic certified. And this is already a significant challenge for traditional processors because they have big supply chains where the nuts are supplied from 2 or 3 days away. Whereas in our case, single source harvested nuts, all from within the area of our own farm, and with the factory integrated into that. And that's what allows us to not only be a coconut farmer that can be incredibly efficient, but also have all these specialty skills that's required to deliver a business, which is not only economically attractive, but it's also able to create so much value that we can share in that value. Because obviously, if you don't create value, it's very difficult to have an ecosystem where partners can join in. And our partner, very important partner, is of course the local community. Our host community is the indigenous peoples of Palawan. So if you can see in the background of my picture here, that's the Mount Mantalingahan, which is the tallest mountain in Palawan. And essentially the farm is located along the sea in a stretches over an area of about 16 kilometers. And it is not like a traditional farm, because if you have ever seen pictures of a palm oil plantation, you will see palm oil for as far as your eye can see. Our farm is integrated in what we call a patchwork integration into the environment. So the second aspect of this, beyond of course being very community focused, very socially responsible, and driving livelihood development in what is one of the poorest areas of the Philippines, with a, for example, malnutrition rate of more than 60% when we arrived, but also to be able to do this to the very, very highest standards of environmental compliance. And we further, of course, do that by the fact that we have a long-term agreement with the Department of Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and we operate under what's called an agroforestry development plan. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a feel for the scale that we build into the business. And we would also like to share with you, we have 2 more videos. Cedric, do you think we should share the farm video, or do you want to go to the factory video?
Just before we do that, I have a couple of questions. So essentially, Lionheart Philippines right now, it is an area which is planted. It's about 3,500 hectares, out of which 2,000 are planted. And then you have the factory area, right?
Yes. So as Cedric, as you just mentioned, our total plantable area, so that's net plantable area, is 3,500 hectares. Essentially, that will become our production area. And out of that, we have currently planted 2,000 hectares. And the factory is located literally inside the farm. We, at the moment, employ just under 1,000 people. This is 1,000 people in direct employment. And then in addition to that, we have a large group of people that are connected to us as either part of our supply chain or as part of our, we call it partner farming program, through which our harvesting operation happens. And so in total, we create employment for about 1,400 to 1,500 people at the moment.
And you have planted about 430 odd thousand trees, right?
We have more than 500,000 palms planted at the moment, but we always have a certain way in which we look at it. So we officially only say, I think in this context, 400 and some 30,000, yes, correct.
And these have been verified by the Philippines Coconut Authority, which is an authority in the Philippines for that business, isn't it?
Yeah, so since the very beginning, we have been coordinating very closely with the Philippine Coconut Authority, who obviously have also been very keen to see and look for this dynamic change in the industry. And we have had regular visits over the years and advisory from the Coconut Philippine Authority. And they have also just completed a full-scale validation of our planted palms, which is obviously important, both with regards to the number of palms planted, but also with regards to their, so to speak, maturity.
So you're getting ready for some serious business, right? Because you have a very large amount of tree planted, and you have all the certifications, both domestically and for foreign markets. And your addressable market is actually the export, isn't it?
That's correct, yes. So I'm actually also joined today by our farm operations manager, Ivory. She's literally in the farm, and if we want to, we can have a quick introduction from her, and you will be able to see what a typical planted area looks like. And perhaps Ivory can also explain to you how, for example, we use modern planting techniques, also as recommended by the Philippine Coconut Authority, where we plant what we call 3-in-1.
Yes, sure. Hello, Ivory. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello. Hello, everyone. I am Ivorita de Torre. I am a licensed agriculturist. I've been working in the Philippine coconut industry for several years, managing farms. I specialized on coconut production, horticulture, and crop protection. So in the farm operations has four operating units. The farms, which is divided into 7 farms in different locations. And then we have also the biofertilizer factory for the inputs of our coconut, the organic inputs. And then we have also the bio yield and biodefense laboratory for the production of our microorganism, the indigenous microorganisms. And we have also the harvest operations wherein we are harvesting the sap. So in the farm operations, our day-to-day operations, we plant coconuts, of which we target 20,000 palms every month. And these palms are a high-yielding variety, of which a hybrid palms. And we planted it on three palms per hill, of which as you can see, there are 3 palms in one hill. And in 1 hectare, we have around 541 palms, a high density planting in the farm. So behind, we have here coconut palm, which is emerging flowers. So we started to harvest, and we are scaling up the harvest over the coming years. And also in the farm operations, we are doing maintenance operations, of which we are applying compost fertilizer. Over here, this is our organic input. Here. So we are applying compost to our coconut palms, all coconut palms. So our target is around 600 tons of compost per month. That is to cover all farms, the 7 farms. Okay. So this provide nutrition to coconuts, the nutritional requirements. And then we have here also the application of our concoctions, the organic foliar fertilizer over here to of course to provide the nutritional requirements of the palms. And also in our biofertilizer factory, we are producing 8,000 liters of foliar fertilizer, 600 tons of organic compost, and this applied to all farms.
Thank you very much. This is great. So just to confirm, how long does it take for a tree to grow to maturity so that it can start to be harvested, Christian?
Yes.
Well, typically it's a period of 4 to 5 years, and sometimes, depending on conditions, it can vary a little bit from that. So essentially, those palms that are now first planted at the early part of 2017 are those palms that we are now seeing bearing fruit.
Okay, very well. I want to say to all participants, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box, and then we will try to answer them as we go as well. So as Christian was suggesting, I think it would be a good time to show you another video which will highlight the factory operations of Lionheart. So going from the farm that we've just seen and now into the factory. So here it is.
While our farm harvested whole coconuts can be supplied in large scale directly to customers, then our specialized harvesting of the coconut flower sap requires a delicate handling in order to be processed into high quality, high value products. Overall global demand for coconut products is strong, and the market continues to expand. But consumers are increasingly demanding certified, healthy, traceable, and sustainable products. A requirement that traditional, independent, small farmers and large processors find difficult to comply with. Lionheart's close integration of farming and processing not only guarantees a single source of raw material, but also makes it possible to satisfy this strong consumer trend. With the food and beverage industry's global companies, Lionheart Farms has a unique differentiation. Welcome to our factory operations, where we produce coconut flower syrup, sugar, and aminos to supply global customers with bulk products, as well as selective lineup of retail products. Despite operating in the remote location of Kalashan, South Palawan, our factory is highly professionalized and a sophisticated food processing facility, certified to the highest standards under the Global Food Safety Initiative, with BRC, as well as halal, kosher, organic, and the increasingly important ethical business certification of SMETA, without which many of the world's leading food companies will not accept your products. Our factory team is a highly experienced and skilled group of professionals who share the passion of creating and producing the absolute best products. To meet the individual requirements of the largest customers, then our product management team is based in the factory and works closely with our quality assurance and production teams. Within the factory, we also operate our own physico-chemical and microbiological laboratories to be able to continuously perform the required sampling and analysis. Our factory is fully equipped with a state-of-the-art inline processing from raw material to finished product. It is supported by a fully redundant electrical power plant and biomass steam boiler, which is supplied by local agricultural waste and waste management systems to treat both wastewater and recycled materials back to the farm. Lionheart Farms will lead the industry within this specialized form of processing and aims to explore the coconut flower sap as a very versatile raw material, which gives us a unique opportunity to explore the world of sustainable, healthy, and diabetic-friendly sweeteners. Our selective focus on these products leverages the story of Lionheart Farms and is a unique supplement to the more traditional large-scale production of whole coconuts from the farm. We are Lionheart Farms. Maraming salamat po.
Another great video for us to see what is the reality of the business. Thank you so much for arranging that, Christian. Do you have any comments on the state of the operations right now?
Well, I think that maybe this one would be, if you will allow me, a personal reflection. I've worked in different industries around the world. I've worked for some of the leading global companies, and I've also been part of building businesses from the scratch. And I must admit that in my 35-year long history, I would have never, work history, I would have never imagined that it would be possible to come to a place as remote as this and be able to have such an amazing group of people assembled as what we have in Lionheart today. And I think it needs to be put in context that there was absolutely nothing here when we arrived. So you could say that from the vision that Anders articulated, we knew that we had a great idea, but we also obviously had a huge challenge to put the business together. And this is obviously perhaps what I think we're all most proud of today, where we are. And we have some fantastic products. I can show you here, for example, our coconut amino product, and our syrup product. These are just products that are amazing, and they have, I think, for example, the amino product. It's essentially a healthy alternative, non-GMO to the soy sauce, and we have some very, very interesting products coming over the years. But perhaps the one thing, before I suggest that maybe we should have a word with Ray, who's inside the factory. The one thing that I think, again, I would like to stress, and that's just simply being able to achieve the efficiency and achieve the scale with which to deliver a highly competitive harvest of coconuts, where essentially our cost is at 2 peso per nut against a market that's now in the mid 15s, around 15, 16, 17 nuts, pesos per nut. So that in itself is a very, very meaningful business that is definitely strong and well positioned for the future. So maybe we should have a word with Ray, who's inside the factory.
Yeah, just before, one question, Christian, about the production you will have in the future years is not yet ready. It will come to the factory within what, six to 9 months?
Well, we are producing in the factory now every day, and we are exporting now. So, but it's important to understand that the scale with which we will expand this over the coming years is, at the moment, we have a capacity in our existing factory. For example, if we look at this product of aminos, we are able to produce 1.5 container per day, which is actually quite a meaningful number. So that's already 45 containers per month of this product. But it's important to understand that the scale that comes over the years to come is very significant. So we are definitely harvesting every day. We harvest 7 days a week, 360 days a year.
You're also harvesting on plantations that don't belong to you, but that you're renting from other people, right?
Yes, that's correct. And this was, I can say, not actually part of our original plan, but quite quickly we saw that the community at large was very interested in what we were doing. And we developed our what we call Cat Farmer program. So this is a partner farmer program. And this allows us to operate essentially an extended farm where the community has the ability to participate and join into this value creation and ecosystem that we have built. And it's from those partner farms that we are today doing most of our harvesting. And we will continue to develop that in a coexistence with the harvesting within our own farm. And that has, of course, also been able to do this very important process when you work in an area like that. And that is to not only assemble the skills, but also to focus them at this very specific and unique approach to it that we have. And so I believe that's been a big advantage, that we have this very holistic approach that you can say not only focused on the economics of being a coconut farmer and producer of end products, but also of bringing the entire community along with us and our very, very high standard of environmental compliance and so forth, and how we want to bring that story into our products as well.
We are receiving a few questions here on the chat box. So someone is asking how many employees you have, how many seasonal employees you employ, and also in terms of remuneration of the workers. Obviously, if you have employees, they receive a wage. How does that compare against the local minimum wages?
Yes, that's a very good question. First of all, it's we are SMETA certified. So part of the SMETA certification is actually a very rigorous testing of our compliance to the labor laws of the Philippines. So that is to ensure that all our employees, we have about 900 employees. These are the full-on employees, and actually we also have our legal counsel and HR head with us, Attorney Leovel. But these are full employees, and all of these employees are receiving compensation at above minimum. And this is very, very important because when we came here first, essentially it was possible to hire someone for 100 pesos a day. And at the time we started, the minimum rates were 235 pesos. So that was the level we started at. And today we are, you can say for many of our employees, well beyond the minimum of 320 pesos, which is the minimum salary. Now, in addition to that, I mentioned that we have this Cat Farmer program. So we have about 300 people in that program. So you can say that's part of that larger number of people for whom we create livelihood through the Cat Farmer program, because they are actually independent farmers who are doing the harvesting in this partner farmer program. And then we have additional about 200 people that are part of our supply chain. So these are the people that do manure collection, which is a very important part. We buy about 300,000 kilos of manure per month, and we've also started producing green manure. So that's in the video that you saw in the introductory video, you saw that there was some solar ponds. So this is a green manure, which is sort of a very alternative way of which we can, shall we say, reduce the pressure on the animal manure. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's turn to Ray. Ray, you are the factory manager. You are currently in the factory of Lionheart. Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ray. So I'm the factory manager, and by profession, I'm a chemist, and I have with me over 23 years of experience in the food industry. And I've been with Coca-Cola for 10 years, and then with some large companies in the Middle East, working with the tea company and some beverage company. My experience is more with operations like the system management, like the quality system, environmental management system, and the safety management system. So here in the factory, basically we just process all the raw materials and then we convert it into product and then we deliver it to customers.
Thank you very much. So how many people are currently in the factory?
Right now, I have 78 persons working with us.
And what are the type of jobs that these people are doing? Can you please tell us a little bit about maybe their background as well?
Okay, so we have different kind of department here. So we have the maintenance department, which took care of the equipment, and then we have the warehousing department. So all the storage, deliveries, incoming materials, they're taken care of that. And then we have production, so the process itself, and then we have the most important one, which is the quality department, which took care of all the certifications from BRC, ISO, Halal, and all other certifications.
Thank you very much. So let me now introduce Yavel. Yavel, you are the legal counsel of the business. You are currently in Manila, and you support the business from the capital city. So how important is it to have this level of certification and registration with the local authorities in the Philippines? This is quite regulated, is it?
It's very rigorous. The process is very rigorous, but at the same time, this is a challenge for us to complete all of the compliance requirements. So we are very proud to say that not only with the local requirements have been met, but also with regard to international certifications, we are above and beyond of what is required of us. And it is a continuing process. And we can assure everyone that Lionheart would always be compliant in every aspect.
Thank you very much. Anders, we have a few questions coming in. One is about the customers that Lionheart is aiming to address. Could you say a few words about that?
Yeah, in fact, I just typed, but sure, let's talk about that. We believe that, I'm going to throw a number out, like 80% of our trees are going to be harvested for coconuts. Okay, so that's really the main, in volume terms, that's absolutely still the main product. The coconut market is a global market. It follows essentially palm oil in prices, so very high correlation in the dollar value of coconuts and palm oil. And that's because they are substitutes. Upwards of 90% of Filipino coconuts are in fact processed to coconut oil, which trades in a fairly narrow band with palm oil. So very deep commodity market. The big buyers are the people you would expect. It's Cargill, it's Franklin Baker, it's Barry Callebaut. It's all the big oil companies. But when we look at, so again, the whole coconut harvest, we also have buyers who are looking for coconut water. They like our organic certification, so we get a premium for our coconuts for that reason. Most of the coconut water around the world is actually sourced in Thailand, but Thailand is running out of acreage very, very quickly. And Chinese companies have leased more and more farmland in Thailand. So everybody's looking for new supply of fresh coconuts, and obviously we are perfectly positioned for that. In terms of the sap derivatives, as we call them, the products that Christian was talking about, the aminos, potentially vinegar, soon coconut sugar, coconut syrup, these are exported. Our volumes are still small, so we're dealing with specialized buyers in different places around the world. Our first orders are coming out of the west coast of the US, and we have a European buyer as well. We have very good connections into the very big guys, but we bide our time a little bit because we need to build up our volumes before we say open an account with Nestle or Unilever, but we do have those dialogues.
And the market is quite looking forward in the coming years. The market looks quite strong. I mean, like you said, there is demand for the product. Some of the natural sellers are probably hitting capacity. But you seem also to focus on the transformation of the product, increasing the yield, but also increasing the transparency and the traceability. That's very important for the end customers, isn't it?
I mean, just having Smeta alone gives us a big price premium and something that nobody else can compete with. There's a long history, and we don't have time today, but the coconut market globally is so fragmented. It's something like 98% of the production in the Philippines comes out of farms that are the size of 1 to 2 hectares. And for international buyers to deal with thousands of small farmers is just so complex. So the value proposition we give is this full transparency, traceability. You deal with one-stop shop, we can deliver everything. It's such a big advantage for the big buyers.
Very good. Now, when we look at how you have been able to finance the growth of this business so far, you have relied on personal funds from extended friends and family, I suppose. And you have also, you mentioned some commercial loan that you took locally, but now you need more capital.
Yeah, because having paid essentially for the planting more or less out of shareholder funds, and I think I can disclose that we spent about almost $20 million on getting to where we are now. Processing capacity that we have now is fine for this year, but we need to plan ahead because when all our trees all of a sudden come online, we get so much more raw material than we've been used to. And for that, we need to look ahead. We need to build more processing lines, but we also want to plant more trees. Roughly speaking, and I'll just give this as a general guide, for every dollar we've invested in planting, we get a present value back of about $3 at the age they are now. So the planting itself is really profitable. There's no problem with that. But adding processing and especially sap derivative processing, it's a completely different ballgame. So returns, very, very solid.
Very good. So we will be able to disclose more of the economics of the business for anyone who is interested. But we also want to underline the fact that globally there is a very strong drive by global investors to invest in businesses that have both a green and a social impact. And Lionheart really embodies those two components. And we would like to use also this growth that we see in the global markets to attract new investors to the Lionheart business through the issuance of a special transaction, which will be following, if you allow me to share some slides, the principles that have been created in the market for this type of transaction. So we are looking at structuring a transaction which will follow the green bond and the sustainability linked bond principles, like as they have been defined by the International Capital Markets Association, with the alignment with the ASEAN Green Bond Principles, the Green Bond Principles, and if possible, the Climate Bond Standard. We are going to apply for certification under the CBI. There will be a sustainability performance target associated with this transaction, which is the planting of 40,000 new trees within the next 24 months following the closing of the transaction. The idea is that upon the successful completion of this sustainability performance target, the transaction will offer a reduction of the borrowing to Lionheart by 0.5% of the amount that has been borrowed. And this amount will be then transferred to the social fund that Lionheart has created for the benefit of the local community. And maybe, Christian, you can speak a little bit about that. What would be the benefits of this fund?
Well, so first of all, this fund is very focused on education. We have been focused on education since the very beginning. So that's since 2016. And why is it that education is so important? Because first of all, if you go out and talk to any family, the number one thing that they all want is a better education for their children. And we also have seen that it's not only a question of being able, obviously, to for them to have better education, but it's also a question of being able to understand how it is that they can help to build their own community. So a big part of that work that we do in terms of our focus on education in the community is very much around not only how can we make sure they get better education and simply get education, but also how can we make sure that that is directed and that they're activated to take responsibility in their own community, and so that we can reverse this trend of possibly leaking and going to the big cities and possibly even leaving the Philippines. So that's one area. Another very important area is within the environmental protection. So one of the things that we have worked very actively on is, for example, to help to prevent the deforestation that takes place through illegal logging and through production of charcoal as a result of illegal logging. And that's where we have our very important initiative to also help the community to get access to carbonized charcoal made from agricultural waste. So we have a lot of these programs that are very deeply rooted into the community, and our approach always starts with dialogue, because dialogue is the most treasured principle under the culture of the indigenous people, and we have adopted that. And by the way, we also have adopted in the same way a parallel structure within our organization. So the way we have built the corporate structure is also one which has given a lot of consideration to the specific and unique culture of the Palawan tribe.
Very good. Anders, I see you just answered the question that was posted on the chat, but can you also talk about the carbon impact? I think it's a theme that is quite close to your heart as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna pull out my coconut tree here again. So when I said 46% of the carbon production goes into the coconut bunch, which in some cases we're going to sell as coconuts, in some cases we harvest the sap. That actually gives us a very good indicator of the remaining 54%. Where does that go? And the answer is 40% of the 54 effectively goes into the fronds. So this tree sheds an enormous amount of fronds and leaves every year. And that carbon, the big question, if we say we're removing and storing carbon, the question we need to answer is, where do these go? So the fronds and leaves must be, we cannot burn them, because if we burn them, we release the CO2 again. So we either chop them and put them into the compost, where they will take a long time, but may be sped up by our microbes, but they will be composted into soil carbon. Or we create, like Christian was saying, the charcoal from the waste, which is a substitute for illegally logged and produced charcoal. So either way, there's a big carbon effect. And if you measure this out, there's a very simple and very, very handy rule of thumb, which is, if you show me one coconut, I will tell you that that coconut has removed and stored 3.5 kilos of CO2 in its production. So that number can be used in all sorts of contexts. You ask a farmer, how many coconuts did you harvest last year? Well, I'll tell you then how much CO2 you've sequestered. So we've been really deep diving into this.
Now, investors are demanding high standards when we come to market with a financial investment opportunity that claim to be able to deliver both social and green aspects. So in this transaction, we have actually turned to Carbon Care Asia, which is a regional verifier with people in Hong Kong and Singapore, and an expertise in exactly those areas that Anders is referring to, which is, the environmental aspect. So I would like to introduce to you Xing Lan, based in Hong Kong, working for Carbon Care Asia. Hello, Xing. Can you please give us a little bit of background on your company itself, but also on the work you're doing for this transaction?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the introduction, Cedric. Hello, everyone. I'm Shane. So yeah, from Carbon Care Asia. So really pleased to participate in this meaningful and exciting project. So as Cedric mentioned, so we are sustainability consultancy. So we are also one of the first batch of approved verifier by a Climate Bond Initiative. And what we will do is like to providing external review for this project. So we are working on the pre-issuance external review of the Green Bond Framework, as Cedric mentioned. So as International Capital Market Association published the Green Bond Standard, so it's basically set the foundation for the other international best practice or guidelines. They suggest that external review is highly recommended in addition to the Green Bond Framework that the issuers they want to apply. So our role is like from an independent sustainability expert's perspective to review the alignment of the issuance practice of these green bonds, and also to examine or explore the environmental impacts if it's aligned with the environmental objective as it claimed to be. So yeah, so here I would also say a few words about my company's background. So Carbon Care Asia, as mentioned, we have operations in Singapore and Hong Kong. So we were established since 2008. So yeah, and we're working on as a small finance related advisory. So we provide verification service for green bond issuers, and also we provide ESG integration service for investors who want to proceed their sustainable investing and put more effort. In addition to that, we also helping companies in across Asia to do their sustainability disclosure and enhancement. So far, like we already delivered over 300 sustainability reports, and we're also doing like carbon management and also the heat top as net zero solutions. We also do that. And for the
Xing, sorry to interrupt you, but you will be delivering as a result of your work, so a report that will be accessible by investors on Lionheart.
Yeah, exactly. So we have been doing the data collection with the help of Cedric and other colleagues, and we are doing the review on the documents, say the environmental impact report of the project, the JAS mapping, and other information indicating the impacts of the projects. So as Cedric mentioned, we will conclude our opinions in the format of the report. And yeah, as soon as we complete the review of the information, and at that time, we will update the investors and also the interested stakeholders, the report. Yeah.
And you're having discussions with the Climate Bonds Initiative to seek certification under the Climate Bond Standard. And yeah, I believe it's the agricultural criteria that may be used.
Yeah, exactly. So because as maybe we forgot to mention this, so Climate Bonds Initiative is the certification body of Climate Bond Standards, which is one of the most stringent green bond standard, and a lot of international, we call sophisticated green investors will check the label and the certification of green bond on that aspect. So they have set very detailed sectoral criteria for different projects, say renewable energy and also like low carbon building. So for Lionheart's project, so it's like an agroforestry project. So we have checked with CBI that this project should be like into like agriculture project. Yeah, so we will use the agricultural criteria to do the verification.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much. And this work is actually supported by US aid as a public support for the Lionheart, including a few other elements of the work that we are doing for this project. Christian, I think you have something to say.
I just wanted to perhaps share with everyone that in addition to the certifications that we talked about in our videos and that I also mentioned, I think it's relevant to mention that now for the second year, we have completed what's called the Sustainable Assessment for Food and Agriculture. So this is an assessment framework that has been developed by FAO, which is essentially put in place to make the sustainable delivery, the global sustainable development goals measurable. And I think that a lot of us, we hear about the sustainable development goals, but very rarely do we actually see that it's being measured against. And I think that we have now done this for the second year. And I think there are two primary takeaways from that. The first one is that because we are so structure, planning, process driven, because again, the key that I mentioned to the success of our business is of course this management of the scale. So understanding how that works in every little detail. But the other part of what we learned from this is really how to work towards this high level of compliance in all these four aspects of sustainability. And we are the first company in the Philippines to have actually gone through this now for the second year. And we had the privilege of scoring very high. And I think this has become part of the culture of Lionheart, of how is it that we can take this industry, which is otherwise at risk of being left behind. Anders made some casual reference to the small farmer challenge of lacking scale, getting old, working with old palms, and having no access to capital, and in fact, most of them being in debt. So if you will allow this, me to give this as a finishing remark, and that is that I have been surprised how we have been able to translate these early observations that Anders talked about in terms of the photosynthetic converter power of the coconut palm and translate it into this ecosystem in which there is a lot of meaningful value to be shared, and building a business that's compliant to the highest standards measured against any international benchmark. So I'm very proud that we can be here, and thank you for organizing this. And it's been a privilege, at least for myself, to participate.
Thank you very much, Christian. So from this day forward, we will be engaging with anyone from the audience who is interested to discuss further on this transaction. There is more information we will be sharing concerning Lionheart or the structure or the verification as well. So we welcome any feedback that you have. Please engage with us, with Anders, with Christian, with myself. We will be answering your questions. I'm sure there will be more. I would like to thank everyone from Lionheart to join this call. Thank you, Ivory, for this visit in the farm. It's great. Thank you, Ray, to show us the factory. Thank you, Yevel, for your participation as well. Thank you, Xing from Carbon Care Asia, for joining as well from Hong Kong. And obviously, thank you to Christian and Anders. This is a fantastic project that you are working on. And it's great to see how you're developing. So thank you very much for anyone who has attended this call today. We will be sharing the recording if you think that some other people should see this video. And we are at your disposal if you have further questions. Thank you very much. Have a good evening or rest of your day and a good weekend. And we look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.